Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the Dell Latitude 5470. I already reviewed last year's 5000 and 7000 series, actually favored the 5000 over the 7000 just because of the way better value. This year though, the 7000 made such a huge leap forward with a lot of minor improvements, and that's why I think it's the pretty much best possible ultrabook or business device that you can get on the market right now. Is the 5000 series able to achieve what it did last year and actually get the value crown back? We'll see about that in the full review, and I want to start off with a quick overview. Design and build quality really well built, but I don't think it's quite as substantial and solid like last year, because they did a few little compromises in terms of build quality. Overall though, still the great amount of ports and still very good. Still also a little bit more on the chunky and heavy side, but it is a business device after all. The display here, I only have the 768p display, not the 1080 like last year, and that's why I'm not so happy with it. And I would definitely recommend you, if you want a nice display, get the 1080p version. The sound, quite similar to last year, good enough, tonal balance is okay, but it still distorts quite a lot, which the 7000 series didn't so much, but still gets the job done, especially since it is a business device. Performance, absolutely, without any doubts, absolutely fine enough, because browsing performance, absolutely fine. Everything else gets done with the i5 without any issues. The Skylake does an absolutely great job, and with the low resolution, it has no problems handling all the tasks you would expect from that. Battery life, really good. Way better than the 7000 series because of the low res display, I guess. I think with the 1080p things would even out a little bit, but as it is, with about easily 8 hours of use, I was totally easy getting through one day. Heat and noise, absolutely phenomenal, because moderate and easy tasks get handled absolutely silent. I never heard the fans going on once, and I actually had to use a benchmark and a stress test to actually be able to hear the fan, and even then it is absolutely amazing because it is so subtle, so quiet, that I actually wanted to make a noise video, but it was so quiet that my microphone couldn't even pick it up. So that absolutely fine. And in terms of heat, no issues at all. It doesn't throttle at all, and it almost doesn't get warm at all. It gets pretty much like a degree over skin temperature, which is absolutely great. The software is absolutely stable, had no issues with all of that. So I would say let's jump in and check the design and build quality. A quick little size comparison first, here with the MacBook Pro, just so we have that. As you can see, it is still noticeably bigger. As you can see here, also quite a bit thicker and also heavier, but it is a little bit bigger after all in terms of display size with 14 inches, but yeah, it is definitely not on the same level. And if I would compare it with the Dell Latitude 13-inch version, you see there is a big difference here. But yeah, that is up for another review that will come soon as well. So size-wise, it's not the smallest one, it's not the lightest one, as you can see, quite thick. And the one thing that I have to a little bit complain about is the build quality here on the top, because last year we had magnesium with a nice soft touch coating, but this year it looks like plain plastic. Still looks quite rugged. It's pretty much the same plastic as on the back. But I really like the soft touch finish last year. We don't really have this anymore, and what I also saw on this version, as you can see here, the bottom is already a little bit loose. I guess this is maybe due to transport or just mishandling, and you won't really see that in normal use, but the fact that it actually can happen is a little bit uncomforting. But other than that, they did a great job. It still feels very solid and sturdy, but not as good as last year. Here we have the USB port output for the fans as C-card reader. Here we have the front bottom facing stereo speakers, a few LEDs, don't really need them either way. Here we have the headphone jack, SD card tray. As you can see, the whole SD fits in, which is something that I really like. USB 3.0 and the canceling lock. And on the back we have all the goodies. Gigabit Ethernet, VGA if you still need that. We have even a SIM card tray because this is the LTE version. Full size HDMI, USB 3.0 once again, and the port for the charging along with the port for the docking mechanism. Here we still have the plastic feet, the infamous ones that don't really protect it from sliding on the table. As you can see here, it gets way too easy. I would wish for rubber feet, but it's okay. Here we have some more fan ports and all that. Rugged plastic, so all good done here. So in overall, I still think it does a really nice job. Last year's model just did it a little bit better, and maybe that's why this year's version, for me at least, seems a little bit cheaper. Maybe they cut some costs here. So I would say let's open it with one hand. Let's say halfway decent possible, so not really. Okay, I want to take a look at the keyboard because I absolutely love this one, as you can see here. And I will zoom in a little bit. As you can see here, a nice amount of travel. I really like that. The camera is shaking a little bit, sorry. Absolutely nice travel. Feedback is amazing. I really love typing on this. It is super quiet, gives you a fantastic feedback. And if I turn off the light, you will see we have 2 level backlight, 2 steps. It flickers now, but this is because of the camera. I absolutely love this typing experience, and it is one of the best keyboards that I've ever seen on the market. Not quite so much for the trackpad, because it still accepts everything else. Multi-finger gestures and all that works fine, but I just think it still has a little bit too much grip. I would wish for them to go over to the glass panels as they do on the XPS line. Buttons though, and overall it gets the job done. We have the track point for the mouse. Some people like it, some people just don't like it. We also have the fingerprint reader. Very slow, very unreliable, and no comparison to smartphone fingerprint readers, which is something that I don't get. So that's all I have to say about that. Now let's check the display. I will turn off the light so you can actually see one thing. If we have it in this angle, we can see a quite nice black, but it is a TN panel, so you will see some extreme shifting in terms of the colors. And that is one of my main gripes, actually, besides the resolution, because it is just a 3766 by 768 panel, and this just doesn't look really impressive or anything at all. The resolution is quite low. I actually got used to it after a while. For normal use, it wouldn't be good enough for me in a long-term use, and for my personal device, then I would definitely need the 1080p display. But I was actually surprised that it wasn't that bad, because if you have it in one angle that you usually use it on, it's not that bad, the TN shift, as you can see here, but the viewing angles definitely aren't great. The maximum brightness is totally fine. I had no issues with it. Other than that, as you can see here, the minimum dim screen, yeah, it goes dimmer, but it's totally fine for me. I used it usually at a brightness of 50 to 60%, which is absolutely fine. And still, since we have a matte panel, it can be used outdoors. The black, as I said, shifts, but it is really uniform and quite deep, so all good here. The white was also really nicely calibrated. The colors, yeah, you have to just see that what it is a TN panel, so colors aren't super accurate, and don't expect to get any graphics work done. This is for the business user who doesn't need accurate colors. It gets the job done, it looks quite okay, but nothing more than that. That is all I have to say, and I would actually say let's jump right into the sound test, because the display isn't my favorite. I would definitely wish something else, and the 1080p IPS panel just will do a way better job here. Now, sound. Absolutely fine in my opinion. It is maybe not the very loudest one, but usually absolutely fine. But the one issue that I have with the maximum loudness is that in some lower quality and some more treble based sound, it just distorts still a little bit too much. That was a little bit annoying, and then you just have to either lower the volume or tweak a little bit in the settings that we also have. I will get to that later in the software part, but other than that, the experience in terms of sound, the balance is totally fine. Really not too much to complain at it. After all, is a business device, so that's why I won't really brag too much about it. It is fine. Now let's check what we've got in terms of performance. And here, first of all, the SSD speeds. Totally fine, absolutely nice. 500 read speeds or 550 and 350 in terms of write speed. Definitely absolutely fine. And if you just check the scrolling performance here with the trackpad, as you can see, this is pretty much one of the best browsing or scrolling performances that I've seen with a touchpad. Works super smooth. I guess this is mostly due to the low resolution that just handles this way better than maybe a 1080p, which just has to push a lot more pixels. Still not the biggest fan of the scrolling itself. Apple just handles this a lot better, but it is smooth. Performance is absolutely fine. Multitasking with 8 GB of RAM here was absolutely nice. Handles all the tasks absolutely fine. Of course, this is a business device, so not really meant for video editing or such. You can do it with a quick enabled video editor. It works quite nice, but other than that, I would definitely recommend you to go for something with an NVIDIA card, because this just will speed up the whole process. But as it is, the performance absolutely flawless, especially with the low res resolution, but still even the 1080p screen should be handled without any issues. Now the battery life, a full charge with the speed charge takes about 2 hours, which is quite good. But I would actually recommend you to go for the adaptive, which takes maybe like 250, but therefore puts less stress on the battery and will be better in the long-term use. So you have 4 different profiles in the BIOS that you can use, and even make a custom charging pattern if you want to use that, and maybe even prolong the battery life of your device. In terms of battery life though, this is absolutely amazing. Let's go into that. Let's zoom in and yeah. That didn't work out. Okay, you have to live with that. As you can see here, 9.5 hours. The lowest watch that I got is 6 hours, but usually 7 and even 8 hours. Of course, some wrong values after all, but I would say at average 8 hours of use, no problem. But with a little bit of lower end use, just writing documents and so on, I expect you to get even 9, maybe 9.5 and higher if you lose a lower brightness. And I would see people even getting 10 hours out of this, and even with heavier use, 6 at least. So battery life, absolutely top. Now, heat and noise, as I said already in the quick overview, I tried to catch the noise, but it just wasn't possible because normal use, I never heard the fan going on once, and it's actually quite warm these days here. So absolutely great job, and I think that is due to the device being just a little bit bigger. It can dissipate the heat way better, and this is something that I absolutely like on this device. And even under full load for half an hour of a stress test, didn't throttle or anything, and the fans still they turned on, but so subtle with a little bit of a higher pitched sound. But that was pretty much all there was to say. There is coil whine, but so minimal you really have to put your ear on the keyboard. Other than that, you will hear also no panel or CPU whine, nothing. Heat, absolutely great because it was pretty much room temperature, the device. And on the bottom, it reached maybe like 38 to maybe 40 degrees Celsius at best. So you can use it on your lap without any issues. It didn't still spin. So absolutely great job here. In terms of software, there's not too much to say. We have Windows 10. The only thing that I could maybe show off is the sound software, but that is pretty much all there is to show, because you still have the Dell audio software that you can use with here a few settings like max bass, max treble, max dialogue, and also you can improve the sound, but I would be a little bit cautious because it out of the box is quite okay. You also have the Dell touchpad software, but it doesn't really allow you any more than enabling 3-finger and 4-finger gestures, but you can't customize. And this is the one thing that I would really like to see on this software, because why do you have this software if you don't really enable any more advanced functionality? But other than that, that would be it. So let's get to the conclusion. I would say, now, is it better than last year's model? And I would say, as it is right now, due to the panel not, because I'm not so happy with the panel, but the rest, they did a few nice little improvements. I think the overall build quality of last year's model was a little bit higher. And since we are talking about the 7000 series of this year, the 7000 series is unmatched. It is pretty much on the same standard, a little bit better built, has the amazing QHD display option with the touchscreen that just looks phenomenal. And if you don't want it, you still have the 1080p option. But the difference in terms of price is quite big, because the HD version here costs, at least here in Germany, around 1,080 euros, but you only have to pay around additional 100 for the 1080p version. So I would definitely get that, and the battery life should still be okay. I don't really see that. Performance should all still be fine. And if you then want the 7000 series though, with similar specs, then you have a little bit of an issue, because that one costs like 500 or let's say 400 euros more, and the highest spec model that I had was around 2,300 euros. Of course, had a bigger SSD, had the i7 and a few more things like the touchscreen. But overall, this one in terms of value definitely beats the 7000 series. If money is no concern and you want the possible best, go for the 7000 series. If you want to save money, you could maybe check last year's 7000 series. Not quite sure about that price, especially in the US. You can get them often quite cheap. But if it's about last year's 5000 series and this one, it's a little bit of a tough choice, because I didn't use them in the same configuration. I liked the old one a little bit better in terms of the display, of course, since it was a better panel, but just in terms of build quality. And in overall, it was pretty much the same. So I wouldn't say this year's one is a step back because it is cheaper. So if you want a more affordable device, you can still go for that. But if you want to save the money, there's nothing wrong with the 5450. And I definitely didn't say without a good reason last year that I love it and I wanted to switch from my MacBook. It's still a great device, but I'm someone who prefers the best possible display, and that's why I would really like to have the 7000 series, but it's pretty much double the price if you have a little bit higher specs. And last year's option actually had the option for an NVIDIA graphics card, the 830 and 840. I'm not maybe the most powerful graphics, but still, after all, or discrete graphics, which you won't have this year anymore. So in some ways, the 5000 series is a step back compared to last year, but it is also cheaper. So the value is better. You have to make a few sacrifices though. Last year's 7000 series, I didn't think last year's value was that good. So I think in terms of overall value and options and all that, the 5450 from last year is still the best buy. This one though, if you get it for a good price with the 1080p panel, that's not much wrong, because some things like the sound is a little bit better, the keyboard is a little bit more high quality, the battery life is better, but I didn't have the same configuration last year. So I think I've had enough to say. If you have any questions, just leave them down below in the comments, and I will definitely try to help you, because I had already on my unboxing and my first impressions video, on my review of the 7470, a lot of questions about exactly these devices, and I can definitely answer them better if you just have any specific things to ask for. Other than that, I would say that's it. I hope you liked this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more reviews like this, subscribe to the channel. Okay, wish you a nice day. Until next time, bye.